This DJNTV show is sponsored by DJ Event Planner, Electro Voice, DJ Trivia and DJ Bingo, ProX Direct, NLFX Pro, Promo Only, Odyssey Cases, Perfect Portals, Instant DJ Requests, and our DJNTV Insiders. This is John Young from DJNTV. Thanks for watching. Guys.
Good evening. Welcome to another edition of DJ News. Thank you very much for taking time to join us on a Monday night. John, Cubby, myself, we are here, and we're going to kind of run with something that's kind of been on a few people's tongues, at least for the past week or so. Talking about some trends. Looking for this year. What exactly do we have to look forward to? What are we thinking might happen? Hopefully we'll give you no insight at all, and we'll save it all for ourselves. But maybe we'll let you in on one secret. Yeah,
but I even if we would try to keep the insight for ourselves, the three of us are probably not that insightful. So
fair enough.
It might not
fair
be.
Enough.
So they're going to learn from our mistakes. That's a valid way. That's at least what I teach the kids. It's like, here, watch what I do and don't do it most of the time. But Dad, you just
Is that why my house project went wrong?
Yeah, that's why you lick your finger and touch the outlet to see if there's electricity? Yes, don't do this. Just seemed like a good idea. So yeah, we're going to dig into the Zola list. And for those of you out there watching, it is in the description of this video. There is a link and you can follow along and add your little thoughts and such into the YouTube chat. That's the one that we're going to kind of predominantly follow tonight, is the YouTube chat, where any of the chats will work. But I'm just sharing a link to the YouTube, which for most of you, you saw this YouTube link 30 seconds ago. But it is there, and if you want to jump into the YouTube area, and then you'll be able to kind of follow along as there's a continuing conversation in the chat room tonight. So
it helps because I can't see any of them but the YouTube chat.
Yeah, so that's why I like to. Yeah, so that way Dan can kind of follow along a little bit easier.
And all those mean comments you usually leave about me, John just doesn't tell me.
I typically don't. Or the ones where they were talking about that time. You did that thing with that apple, and they were like, "Yo, whoa."
It was impressive.
It was.
You missed it. You got to go back and watch all of our videos until you find
every one of them, except the ones that are receiving copyright flags. But that's another story for another day. We'll go from there. So, okay. So what I've done is I've got a scene set up here, guys. I'm going to flop that up onto the world of the web, so they can kind of see the web page, and then they can still see us, and everything's there. So it will work. Unfortunately, we don't have it set up so that the guys can see what you are seeing out there in the interweb. So they're going to have to follow it along on their own as we go through. So gentlemen, let's jump right into it. Let's see, the Zola list, I think it talked about how many did they interview with this?
4,000.
4,000.
Over 4,000 couples.
So quite a nice representation. Now, I do not know anything about Zola myself. I should have researched that a little bit more before we got started. I was too busy looking at all the stats and the numbers and things to try to figure things out.
They're a wedding lead site.
Okay.
Kind of like a bark, but try to go a little higher end and make deeper connections but you buy credits. They'll give you like a 30-day or 60-day for free. And then after that, you have to buy credits. The couple will let you know if they're interested in you, and then you can buy credits to respond to them.
Excellent. Thank you, Cubby. Zola sends me leads. Excellent. Paul, you have to let us know if those leads have been. I mean, this could be a two-pronged show tonight. Paul, let us know if those leads, if you felt it has been worth your being involved with that. So obviously they're running into couples and such out there. Had a great interview with a lot of them, and these are going to be some of the percentages and stats that came from that. So let's start off the first one. I want to make sure that that's on the screen. Yeah, a month they're getting married. Taking a look at that, was there anything? Now, keep in mind that the three of us, Cubby and I, are coming from the Midwest, Iowa and Minnesota, and Dan is out on the East Coast, but we're all in the northern part of the United States. So that's going to have an effect on the way we look at much of this information, but specifically wedding months. As you guys looked at that, was there anything that jumped out at you that was you felt might be a little surprising?
They lie.
They lie.
No, not daylight. July.
Oh,
July, the month. July. No, I mean, granted, yes, this is, we're assuming that they took a wide selection across the U.S., some northern, some southern, and so that there is that case. And so I understand why our southern friends don't have many weddings in July and August. Like, it's hot in the Northeast. I can't imagine you guys trying to do one in the humidity of Florida in July. That would just be insane. But with that being said, to compensate, like, I don't see like where July leaves off, like December picking up or January picking up, like for the southern map. So it's just weird that as you look at, you have May at 13%, June at 13%, and then July dips to 8.5%. August is to even lower at 7.2%. And then September, which we already know starts that whole fall trend and everybody skyrockets back up. But just to see those two middle months of the summer to really dip. And for the longest time, I was always under the belief, at least when I started, that the summer months were when most everybody got married. Now it doesn't make me feel so bad that my fall is booked out and I still have, a couple holes for August, a couple holes for July. Maybe this is why.
And as I look at it, Kevin, I'm going to get your thoughts on this also, is that August for me is generally one of my busier months for phone calls, especially for this upcoming year. Is that is July is slow, but then for the way we have looked at it is that's the county fair time, and people are doing family vacations and different things. So July has been a slow, but if this would be my thoughts on this, as far as if it would represent the amount of traffic I get, August, September would be my two biggest months, and then it would probably be October, June, May. And April up here with Easter in April is ghost town. There's very, very little. Maybe at the end of April you'll get a phone call type of, one event, but it's generally that off season in Minnesota is just not, from really November, the end of deer hunting, until you get into the beginning of May with fishing season, or when that starts out. That's just how it works. But yeah, until May. We don't see. So when they're showing like 5% of the people are getting married in November, it's like, gosh, I wish I knew who those people were, because November weddings are so sparse for us. How about you, Cubby?
It's pretty much par for course. I mean, we get some bookings literally every month. It's just whether we're booked out or not, being a smaller multi-op. So, I mean, I'll get 2 people out in July, but I won't get all 4 out in July, or in one date, type thing. So. But we're getting our onesie twosies in July and August as well. But very, very hot. People don't like the heat out here. So yeah, July and August are slow for us as well.
Yeah, and the guys are talking about that in the chat room about Paul mentioning giving a pricing difference for climate controlled facilities. Yeah, I can't say I haven't thought of that one too. It's like, oh yeah, I can actually do what I need to do. I can look good, decent in that, and I'll not die at some point in time.
At least the cost of dry cleaning discount.
Yeah, there's no way you're going to wear that.
I'm going through 2 outfits in a day like that. No, I think. Go ahead.
No, you, and then I'll go.
Well, I was just saying, like, I do find it interesting in some of those. I always chalked up some of the summer months to be in different reasons. Where I'm at, we had a Little League World Series, so a lot of times the end of August was like avoided because of that.
Yeah, sure.
Because you can't get a hotel room anywhere near. So if anybody's planning a wedding, it's going to be strictly local. But as we get into this and we see this, especially for us, June has been hotter lately than even sometimes our August days.
Wow.
And so I've seen some now, like more towards the middle, and they're almost more freak type of incidences, but it's usually a weekend or two where you're pushing like upper 90s out of nowhere in June. And so I think some couples locally have started to avoid even some of June
Because of that.
because of that same like, hey, do you remember Jimmy's wedding last year? It was, it was near 100 degrees. We're not doing that. We're going to go to that fall date, or we're going to go to the May dates, because we might be a little bit cold, but I'd rather be a little bit cold than, everybody dying from heat.
Yeah, good point. Interesting. All right, let's jump to the next one. How long have they been engaged by the time they get married? This is an interesting one, because I think what this kind of talks about between this and the next one is looking at the potential for events in a specific group of people. Most of the couples, when I ask the question of how long they've been engaged or find out about that, most of my couples are probably engaged less than 6 months when they contact me. Most of them are probably within 3 months. I don't have people who are very often that have been years. And yet, as you look at the numbers, if you go over 12 months before they, that's where the bulk of people have been engaged for 12 months before they're getting married. And that happens, but it doesn't happen as often as it used to for me up here.
No, wait, is that before they're contacting you? Or from
as far as they're getting engaged,
married?
they're getting engaged. I'm sorry, they're getting engaged, and then when they're getting married, it's like they've been engaged for about a year. Is really kind of the number.
Okay.
They've been together longer, but once they get engaged, and it used to be that there was 6-7 year engagements were common. That happened where they would be like they met, they got engaged right away, and then it was this long engagement. Now. They met and then they get engaged and then they get married. So it's like there's more of a time between the two of meeting and they're together. But once they engage, it's like it's engaged and then we go. It's like, oh, okay. So that's what I've been seeing more of, I feel, up here. And maybe it's a year and a half or whatever, but it's not. You look at 2 years of engagement before they're married. I haven't seen many of the couples who've been engaged for 2 years. Heck, there have been times where there have been people that I've worked with where they had a different partner and we had booked a wedding for them, and then 2 years later they've got another they're booking again with a different potential spouse. It's happened a couple of times. So yeah.
Cubby, what about you? Do you see a lot? Like, do you see that really that year and a half, or is
I do.
longer, shorter?
I do think the sweet spot's 12 to 18 months. I think the longer ones are maybe waiting until they complete college. Maybe both are sophomores. They want to wait till they complete college, or their masters if they're 5 years or more. But honestly, it's about 12 to 18 months. Just did a bridal show, and everybody's looking in 2024 and didn't have dates yet because they'd all just recently got engaged over the holidays.
Yeah.
So talked to very little brides that were booking for yet this year. But I'd go as high as 90% of the brides I talked to were all 2024. Some didn't even have dates. They were just looking at venues and were coming out kicking tires. So I do think it's going to be 24, 25 before somebody even start looking, So I think that 18 months is about right.
And as you look at this, I mean, if we were to break this down, the one thing that's a little deceiving, I think, about these statistics here is, you get the less than 6, you get 6 to 8, you get 9 to 11. Like there's this gap, and then they go like every month.
Yeah.
Right. Where if you quickly group 13 to 18 together, I'm going to just quickly say, like, estimating that's like 35%ish.
Oh, if not
of the people,
50,
if not
I
close
think.
to 40.
Yeah, because you've got,
I'm just doing 13 to 18. So yeah, somewhere in there. But, as a result, it's not, we're definitely seeing that's a sweet spot. I also want to, think about this, and they don't really go into this piece. Well, they did a little bit, I guess, above, like where's the month that they're getting married. But if you think about a lot of the times when they're getting engaged, like I've seen it on Facebook. A bunch of our listeners even posted about that. I was noticing the same thing. Like it was like engagement week or phone, lead week was, like within the past 2 weeks or something like that. So if these people are getting married in engagement season, which is, November to like January, even up to Valentine's Day, and they're not getting married until the following fall because they have to have that fall wedding, that's over 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little more than a year and a half just within that span. So I don't think that's unlikely to see that, creep up towards that 2 years because of when a lot of them tend to get engaged with when a lot of them tend to get married. But yeah, I'm not seeing a lot of them over that 2 years mark. I think that's a little bit less common nationwide. I think you do see that a little bit more in some of your more metropolitan areas where trying to get a venue might be a little bit more difficult. So they're willing to wait on their engagement just to be able to have the place that they want.
Yeah.
Like I've run it, like my cousin-in-laws kind of did that. They're like, well, we really wanted this, but they didn't have anything till the following spring. So pushed it off 6 months. It didn't matter to us.
And then, and I've had a couple of weddings that have done just that, that were going to be in August, ironically, and they pushed all the way back to end of September, end of October. So, and I'm okay with that. Those are usually a little bit more, climate-friendly times of the year for me. So, kind of circling back there. So, but let's go to the next one. How long have you been with your partner by the time you get married? So this is basically, that not including the engagement. This is including the dating time. And it's the part that's interesting to me on this is that if you let's go 5 years or less, it's like the 2/3 roughly is 5 years or less. And I wonder, back 90s, kind of in that frame, it seemed that a lot of the couples that I was working for at that time, and it might have been just how it was, but there were many times I was doing weddings for people in their 30s, and they've been like high school sweethearts. So 10 years was not uncommon that they had been together and engaged for a couple of years or whatever, and then they got married. I just wonder if there's a trend, if it's different now, if it's more like my son Brandon to a point. Brandon and his lady, they started dating, and it was a very quick process for them. That they just knew it was right, and they did their things, and goodness gracious, I think it was about a year from the time. But they knew each other for years in advance. They were friends and such. So I mean, I suppose it would have been 3 or 4 years of knowing each other, but as a couple, it was a fairly short window. I don't know.
I think you may have hit on something there because from the standpoint of like knowing each other, but I also think you don't have, at least where my experience lately with the couples that I have, they're not the high school sweethearts. They're not the college dating couple. These are people that are meeting a little bit later in life, but they, and they're willing to be a little bit more established, or they want to get themselves a little bit more established before they decide to go down that relationship path. And then it's, if I wait 10 years, now I'm in my mid to late 30s, and I don't know if I want to wait that long. But if I go early 30s, that's a little bit different. And so that might be what's also leading to this, 5 years, and let's go ahead and move forward with this. I don't have a lot of like early 20 weddings. That's just early and mid is few and far between. Like a lot of mine are 30 to 35 range, some late 20s, but more in that early 30 range.
Interesting.
Cubby?
Just talked to a couple tonight. Their wedding's gonna be on their 8-year anniversary this fall. They've been dating, and they get married on their 8th year anniversary, so that would hit that 6.19.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, so I would have to, I'm with Dan. My couples are late 20s. They get out of college, get established. Maybe not so much high school sweetheart, but found each other on a dating app. That's really, really, really popular now. I know it's a lot later in the review.
Yeah, we'll definitely be hitting that because that's an interesting side of it also for sure. So okay, so let's go to our next one. Where is your wedding taking place? And this one actually leads into one of the things searched. Locally, where a partner lives or where I currently live or whatever. This was actually one of the things that when Facebook was effective in their advertising or using their algorithms in 2018 and 19, is that they had instituted the ability to target someone that fit this criteria, was in this age, this gender, this whatever, that had traveled through this area. So when kids would go home, so when brides would go home for Christmas, they were engaged, they were the right age, and they had been in this area where I work as a wedding DJ. And it was such a fabulous way to target them. So my ads at that time, to my partner's hometown, there's 17% of the people there that I could have targeted with Facebook ads in 2019, as an example, even 2020, before obviously the COVID world hit. But the December and January, oh my goodness gracious, we did so well with ads targeting that group of people. And guess what? It doesn't matter anymore because nobody under 30 is on Facebook. So they're only there to put up a picture so that mom and dad won't go looking any other social media platforms to find them. Look, I'm on social media. I look at it, put this picture of a teddy bear up there. But your friends, what were they talking about? A picture of you doing what? Yeah. Anyway. Anything of interest or that kind of stood out in that area for the two of you?
I wish they would break that down a little bit. I'd love to see, does it pertain to where, the couple happens to be from? Is that what's leading to more of the destination? Or is it kind of a real commonplace of, just 17% kind of across the board have elected to go to that hometown or to the destination wedding, where you're seeing like in the next two, the destination, the international, as well as the other domestic place. So I would be curious to see a little bit bigger depth on that, but nothing really kind of surprises me. Other than that, I would have thought local would have been actually even higher.
Local could also be that partner's hometown. So that
if they didn't leave the area, for surely.
Yeah. So it's just makes sense to me. I barely get. We're not a destination spot in Iowa, so I don't get any of those.
Mm-hmm. So really,
we're not cornfield weddings. Build it and they will come. That doesn't.
Fall Out Boy likes it, but
no, that's about it. Gosh, that means my Facebook marketing worked towards like 70% or 65% of the people, between the local weddings and the people coming back to the local weddings. Oh, no wonder why it works well. Okay, how did you decide on your wedding location? Is the next one. For most of the folks around, for the weddings that I had performed at, it used to be, this is where we've always had them. It was like these were the two venues, and you chose A or B. Now it's just, I would say the destination spot we love. That's where I'd almost categorize a lot of the barns. They found a picture of a barn and they thought, oh my gosh, I can get my picture taken next to a gas pump from 1961. Yeah. Because that's a thing, I guess. So.
Nothing too surprising out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing that jumped out. Although, like even just the searching online for venues, I think, that's one of the things where unless they've been to a bunch, which I kind of would have thought maybe there would have been a little bit higher within that, like we've been to this venue, or, we saw this somehow, not just a general search. But
yeah, searching online, it seems so kind of a semi-random, but I suppose if you've not been to many, that becomes it. Some of the things that they married before they're married, the things they've done beforehand. The one that I thought was, what was it? Is they've broken up and gotten back together. There we go. I saw that. It's like 9%, and I get it. That one was a little surprising, and the other side of it was they only roughly under 7% have signed a prenup. And I would have expected that to be a little bit higher in some cases, especially when we're dealing with couples who are over 25 years old, and in some cases may have some assets that they are concerned about. But maybe prenups are still faux pas. I don't know.
Hey, listen to that Gold Digger song.
Maybe we need to play it during cocktail before you concert. Yeah.
Sorry.
Anything jumps out at you guys in that one?
No, not really. I mean, I would say the living together, not in a surprising aspect or anything like that. I think most of our couples, when you're reaching out and you just say address, it's quickly you're going to get what is their address where they are currently living
Yeah.
together. That I don't think that needs to be much of a surprise to anybody who's been doing this for even just a little bit.
I think it's almost
But
surprising the other way nowadays that that when I have, well, Joe lives over there and Stephanie lives over there, and unless they're in two different schools, that has happened. I mean, I've got tomorrow, I think, a conversation with a couple, and that's exactly their situation. They're in two different states with two different schools. But most of the time, it almost seems odd. Well, and as we can see, that 13% roughly. Yeah, my math right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I just want to point out that 13% that live together are probably the less than 6 months getting married because they might be saving themselves till they get married and they want to get married quickly.
Yeah, there's that group that wants to do that 6 months. Let's go.
Yeah, well, because due to religious beliefs, they can't live together, so they're
Yeah.
living with their parents still. And so that's a less than 6 month wedding. They just want to get that church wedding and
Move on.
get to the marriage.
Because they're concerned about their taxes and they want to make sure that they have it right for their tax form. I understand, Cubby. That makes complete sense now to me. How did you meet? Just whatever. I don't think there's really much anything there.
I misread the top one. I thought it said alcohol, not at school. Misread it.
And that would be an accurate one.
probably be a little bit higher in that case.
I swear to God, I thought it said alcohol.
It kind of does because that is what's going. Which wedding specific events are you planning? The part that they're going through and doing all these things. I'm surprised in some cases that some of these things still exist. An engagement party, a goodbye brunch is, I suppose, the reception at, those aren't things here.
I would say this. So I agree with you 100% on some of those things. Like I didn't even know what half of these things were. Like Bach party, I was like some classical event or whatever. But like the goodbye brunch, actually, I find is when you have a lot of people traveling from out of town, this is a common thing. Like the brunch happens the next morning. The hotel is usually, sometimes it's just whatever the hotel is giving, for their brunch, and everybody just kind of collects together, and the couple comes down and hey, by the way, thanks again for coming last night, and then they go on their merry little way. Any of our weddings, both family and friends that I've gone and I've traveled to, that is a common thing. So I'm actually kind of surprised. I shouldn't say I'm surprised it's not more, but that's the context that I typically see that.
And for those of you watching, I went and popped it up there so you could see if you didn't know what Bach party was, because I couldn't remember what it was either.
What is it?
Bachelorette party.
Oh.
You're planning a bachelor.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that does.
Somebody
they really needed to abbreviate that.
Yeah, it's way too long. Way too long of a word. Yeah. But yeah, exactly. There's things in there. It's like what? How? What? And again, how many brides are going to be involved with planning that?
Oh, true. Like special event.
That's why it didn't make any sense at first when I saw it. It's like, why? What is that? So,
well, here's the thing. I wonder if there's also some leeway there as far as planning versus happening. Like if I'm going down through, are you personally planning it? No, but there is one being planned.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be. There could be some. Let's move to the next one here. Are you planning a sequel wedding? Which I'm surprised.
Is that getting remarried?
Renewal of vows, basically. Type of a situation, but where this came out of 2020, people had the little wedding, and now they're coming back and they're going to have the full party. So we had 2020 when they didn't, even 2021 that some of those were canceled or small. So 2022 was a year we thought we were going to see a ton of those, and some of us had those booked, and they ended up canceling or going the other way. I was surprised that it wasn't higher than 15%. That were still, just because we might have had some backlog from that, but I wonder if it just hasn't gotten to the point where people are like, yeah, no, it's not going to happen. There might be those 15% nowadays, I'm guessing, are similar. Their destination. We all flew to Hawaii. 10 of us flew to Hawaii. We had that. Now we're going to come back to Minnesota, and we're going to have a party and have a recreation of.
People are just kind of like the 2020 thing. I think that by this point,
we should be beyond.
It's almost removed. Like I had some couples who did it on like the year anniversary, when they're going into 2021 and did something like that. It really, and even at that, they were kind of like, by the time they got to it, like there was even one couple who pushed it off and then pushed it off and actually did it 2 years later because of something.
Yeah.
And they did it, but you could tell their heart wasn't in it the same as when we met beforehand.
Yeah.
And neither would their guests be.
Mm-hmm. Well, their guests were different. Their guests were different because they were looking forward to a great party. But as far as like the reasoning behind it, it was kind of like, yeah, we already know they're married.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they even teased like all along it kept being talked about like this is the best anniversary party you're ever going to go to because it wasn't going to be a wedding, it was an anniversary party.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that, but yeah, it's just there isn't the same excitement and things as. Okay, let's continue on. Favorite wedding planning moment. And it's much more interesting to start at to head to the bottom of these things when there's like the getting our first wedding gifts, practicing our first kiss. That was probably some dudes who were like, yeah, we're going to practice our first kiss, but they're going to do it this way. And then I was surprised. I didn't realize there were that many out there who were similar to my son, who were creating our wedding website. That is that kind of a programming technical person who would be like, "Woohoo! Look at this! There's going to be Flash and anime, crazy stuff." Of course, Flash is out, but 5% get excited about the website. But the feeling done with all the planning. I can relate to that.
I think it's important for us, as we look at this, you hit on something that I think is it's very important for us to keep that part in mind. Like they're excited about their engagement. You notice they're excited about the photo shoot. Like there are things that are done during those planning elements that are designed to be just straight up fun. And I think a lot of times as DJs, we look at the party and the reception as the big fun time that we're going to have. And all this other stuff is a bunch of business stuff that we have to get over so that when it's all said and done, it becomes, well, we're glad we're done with the planning because then we can just enjoy the party. If we could figure out a way to create that exciting photo shoot type of feeling with what we do, I think you might start to see people that get excited about you way before you ever set a single speaker up at an event. How do you do that? Well, there's some different things that you can do. I think it's also important, like the elements that you choose to implement and how you get your couples involved. The people that do love stories and actually sit and get to know the couple and talk and laugh and have a good time. You make the day enjoyable. Those of you that do a form and then show up with that on the day of and go, okay, do we have the form right? I don't think you're creating a fun atmosphere during the planning process.
Sure. So that's why Cubby likes to go and do, field some grounders with his couples.
Yes.
Yeah.
A little BP, a little batting practice.
Yeah. Nothing says fun like batting practice.
No. It's a good time.
It is. All right, let's keep going. Oh, the celebrating of accomplishing some of those little goals. Would you do that? And then how? How would you celebrate those? Just a high five made the 16%.
I think it they check something off their list and they feel better about it. I do like the fact that was actually one of the options, like that they gave just a high five, and somebody checked that off.
Yeah.
16% checked it off.
Yeah.
Dance party.
That was funny. Interesting here. The words to describe wedding planning. This one, actually, I thought that was very interesting because there's a lot of things that we may overlook. And I almost kind of go back to Dan's talking just a second ago about making it fun, making it taking a fastball off the head is so much fun at batting practice. You've got to do it. And yet the first was okay, but then you start looking at all the negative words that came into that, the top 10. It's like, oh my goodness. Maybe our jobs as wedding professionals, we need to be trying to do things to help avoid some of these situations.
I think it's often key, to try and make it as stress-free as possible. Like there's some things you just can't get around. Like, if the couple can't pick a song with their parent because their parent's being difficult, but they know they have to dance with their parent, and you give them a list and that still doesn't help. Like there's only so much you can do to help kind of along with that process. But, looking for ways to keep it as easy in the process as possible, whether that's reminders, whether that is kind of a checklist that you can provide. There's different things I've handed out in the past at bridal shows that had and wedding expos that were just basically ways to help them that had nothing to do with DJing, but it was like almost like that checklist. I think everybody's probably seen them or owned them at one point or another, where it was just like, hey, use this to kind of help with your planning. And there are couples that would come back and be like, hey, that was really helpful. I'm sure there's many who just never used it, but creating those moments and ways to take that load off, or to make the load that they have as easy to carry as possible, is going to be key in these pieces.
Mm-hmm. So for those of you listening to the podcast here, the first one at 70% said used exciting to describe. Then it goes down from there. Number 2 is overwhelming. 3 is stressful. 4 as fun, special, full of love. Then we get down exhausting. A couple more down: nervous, unexpected, absurd, and ridiculous was used to describe 10% of the. So I mean, there's a lot of negativity in there, and Cubby, how do you personally, when you're working with couples, take some of that into mind and try to help them not have those feelings?
Ours starts with DJ Event Planner, and we have emails that go out 12 months before the reception date that says, okay, this is what you should be doing. Don't stress about this. And 11 months and 10 months, and it's a list and tells them, you can start talking about your pastor and things of that nature. So the day of the reception, 12 months out, they're getting emails from us monthly. And then intermixed in there is we have some articles that we have gotten off various websites, seating charts, don't put grandma and grandpa next, to our speakers, and, don't, put us 50 feet off the dance floor if you expect a good dance party. And then the other was like a perfect timeline. And then we used Randy Bartlett's toast, when you get closer to, more closer. So all these go in time so that when we meet if they read them. Now, if they don't read them, then you're overwhelmed and you're
stressed out and you're exhausted and nervous.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that my emails take away or make it less overwhelming or less stressful, but they are educational, and they just kind of talk them through so that maybe they can refer back to, I did read an article about that type thing. And I get emails all the time off of one schedule. Oh my God, this is so helpful. Type thing. And I'm like, so that's what I use and try to help it. And then when we sit down, some take a deep breath, and we're going to go through every detail, and, not everything has to be decided this afternoon. I get it, because everything's digital. You can rip it down. They can tell you the night before. Back in the day in CDs, now you got a problem.
Oh, yeah.
But, everything's digital nowadays. And we've all had it. We've had couples reach out on, Friday before they're set, Friday night after rehearsal going, my dad wants to change his song, or whatever. So we just deal with it and just try to keep them not a problem. I always start not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. Sorry, I talked too much.
No, you're good. And I think one thing for those of you out there watching tonight or any night is, what we're talking about are things that work for us most of the time, unless there's some, general truths within the industry, whatever. But most of the time, it's something that works for us. And even in the chat room, some people have been sharing some great things in there. There are things that work for us. It doesn't mean it works for everyone, or even in every market, or even the same people in the same market, or 2 people in the same market. This is just some of the things from our experience that has helped. And I, Cubby, I think that idea of having things scheduled and such for a lot of people, for the right person, that is a reassurance that you're there and you're still thinking of them and they're still piece of. And then I think there's also a level of people who would be like, oh my God, he's reminding me again. He's just always. There's different sides for it, and the person who would probably be stressed out by that type of thing, or maybe not be the kind of person that is going to book Cubby to begin with. They're going to want to have someone who may be closer to like a Bill Herman, and I say that because he's he talks a lot about the hand-holding and meeting and basically sitting down on multiple occasions, whereas not every client likes that. Some people who are more of an introvert would be like, oh my gosh, you want to see me more than once? Hello. Here's a picture. Don't talk to me. Talk to the hand. Whatever.
The one thing I would mention especially for the new people that are kind of like catching this and thinking about something Cubby mentioned with the idea of scheduling. When I was getting started, I was under the impression that I had to have these emails typed up in my draft system, and I had to keep track and have like alerts on something that would tell me, oh, I got to send this today. And I would go in and I would have to send something, or even just the extent of having to plan. And, oh, by the way, I'm about this far out, so I probably should send them this. If you have a good, CRM, a good client, manager system, DJ Event Planner is one that, a lot of us use. You can legit just schedule that stuff, create certain things. So all their information automatically goes into the email and it gets sent out. And if you type it in such a way that seems conversational, they think you actually typed it. They think that you thought of them and you put that together and you sent that to them because you thought of them at that day, at that time. When you really can have systems that do it for you, and then you don't even have to think about it and you don't accidentally forget it 1 month, or it just gives them those little pieces. Key is you definitely want to make sure it sounds like you. That's going to be a key. You can find stuff out there to buy, but find the stuff that's going to sound like you, so it does sound like it's coming from you.
Yeah, definitely personalize things. All right, let's kind of continue. There's a few more we want to hit. We'll go through a couple of them here. Spending time planning. When are you planning your wedding? I think the interesting one on that is the, and we've known this, if you've had a website that tracks traffic, that during work is, half of the people out there are doing things during their work time, whether they're searching online for information or wherever. The one that was more surprising, I think, for me was the late at night. Is that, yes, I do see some traffic, and when we were tracking during those peak times when Facebook was effective for us, we were not seeing after a point in time, like after about 10 o'clock at night, virtually any traffic. The traffic, our peak in traffic was like in the mornings on Tuesdays and Thursdays from like 10 until noon or something like that. Those were the times where we would have the most click-throughs. And then the second time was like Sunday evening, or excuse me, third, fourth time. Those were kind of more of the hot spots. So seeing that there's roughly half of the people are after 8 o'clock at night, I would put, when the kids go to bed type of thing, whatever, it was a little bit, I didn't expect it to be that high.
I didn't either. I always read and been taught that Monday mornings is like when everybody gets back to work and they start doing wedding stuff really quick.
They would hit it before the boss gets in for the day.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I wonder if it has something to do with families. Like, we see some that are involved, and you have, couples that are coming back together, or mixed families that are coming together. And so as a result, like, they're involved with kids' activities, right? They're involved in chasing around, and you almost have to wait until. I will say the one that kind of struck me and I was like a little nervous was the one that said on my commute.
Yeah, that's true.
Now there probably is people in their subways or something like that, or the trains where they're not actually driving, but if somebody's flipping through and you see them, they might be looking at your website.
Yeah, they could be planning a wedding. They're filling in your DJ event planner. Let's see.
Middle of the night when I can't sleep, that's that stressed out bride.
Yeah, that's the only.
Above.
And then her fiance is the one who signed that it was absurd and ridiculous. Wedding planning affecting your relationship with your partner. Yeah, I think there's our relationship is stronger, and then there's no impact. Yeah, I think that 4% that said it's strained, I think that's got to be a little bit higher than that. Not that it's strained to the point of a breakup or anything, but it does happen. I think it's got to be higher than that. Let's see. Wedding affected your relationship with your family. Again, that's no impact at the big. And I think part of that might be because you're not with the family at all the time. And the strain, I would guess, is between parents and the kids.
Yeah, Momzilla.
Yeah.
I have a groom Momzilla today.
Yeah, and that unfortunately happens. Well, with your friends, the only thing I could see wedding party disagreements on wedding party with your straining of relationship with friends.
I do find the weird wording of all three of those where our relationship is stronger, because that tells me that in some aspects that there was a strain, but we worked through it.
Possibly.
Versus the no impact, meaning they just not, who cares? They're just gonna be there to support you. They don't care what you're doing.
Just like days ago. I've been a rock during the process. There's my pets and different things. I think we'll just kind of skip through that one because there was another one down here I wanted to get to, and we actually talked about it. So we've got the combating stress, the honeymoon. Where was it?
Was it the number?
There we go. Here we go.
Mindset.
I want to get down to the mindset.
Okay.
When did you start thinking about the wedding planning, dreaming of the wedding? I want to get past that. The weddings, how many weddings have you ever attended? That's the one I wanted to hit. And we're running out of time, so that's why I want to get down to it. That one is interesting from the standpoint is that you have this group of people who, the people who've been to have been to 10 weddings, that's 17%, whatever. And then you get into 10 weddings or more, using that's what 40% of the people have been to 10 weddings or more. Now, this would have been couples who would have answered this. So these are probably under 40-year-old people, maybe under 30-year-old people who are using Zola's system. So now we're looking at 30-year-old people. 40% of them have been to over 10 weddings. So we have people who have a definite opinion on some aspects of weddings by this time, I would think. And that's why they don't want cha-cha slide. But I think about that is that you've got that group of people who have been to a lot of weddings, and they're going to have some definite taste because of that. And yet we have a percentage of that room that goes to maybe one wedding a year, one family wedding in 5 years, whatever it may be. But this is that one wedding. And they want to have a wedding experience because this is the only time they're going to get a chance to dance to Cha-Cha Slide, Cupid Shuffle, YMCA, whatever those little wedding things are that the things that we are tired of doing, or the couple who have been to 10 weddings here in the last 2 years are tired of seeing. And yet you're going to have 20%, 30% of your room that is excited to do the YMCA dance.
I think it is important as we look on the question that immediately follows, which was, how many weddings have you been in the past 2 years? Despite everything that's gone on, you still have a large percentage, almost 50% there, of up to 3 weddings. These are couples that are definitely they've been to potentially another wedding or two and relatively recent. So I think it is important for you to, recognize that when you're talking with them, this isn't something that they thought of from that family wedding from 10 years ago. They have some recent ideas that they saw that they may have liked or may didn't. So when you're talking to them, it's a good question to ask them. Hey, when you were to a wedding recently, what did you like about it? What did you not like about it? It doesn't mean we're going to do what you saw, but it does mean that we can figure out what you like and what you don't based upon your actual experience and relatively recent kind.
And this is actually in a direction Cubby, I want you to kind of chime in on this. People have mentioned that like 80% said that attending has influenced their planning of their own wedding. Now, Cubby, when you're talking to couples and they mention that they've been to a number of weddings or such, what direction do they typically go? Do they give you a list of things they want for sure, or are they giving you a list of things that they don't want? Which way do you think that they lean towards more often than not?
More things that they want. Because our planning meetings, we talk in the beginning, and then we kind of start, names, and then we go through all the names phonetically, and I don't know, we just kind of walk them through everything. You got to cut the cake before, after dinner. But what do you think? And we talk about it. So I guess when we talk about each step of the evening, and when the time when that we were doing it, I'm kind of finding out their wants or not wants. What have you seen? Do you like it? Because there's many different variations. So it's more of the things that they've want and seen.
And
I'm curious.
Go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say, with regard to that, are those ones that they've seen? Have they seen you, or have they just seen other weddings?
A lot of well, like I said, I do get a lot of referrals. That's a good question. Probably 60-40.
Okay.
Yeah, 60 like they've seen another wedding, and 40 myself.
I think a lot of like mine is kind of that similar type of thing. If it's couples that saw me someplace, they tell me about the things that they liked from that event that led them to reach out to me. When it's a couple that we have this conversation and they didn't have me, I get a list a mile long of all the complaints of why obviously they didn't contact that DJ from the wedding that they were at.
Yep. Yeah, and that's where I was going to. From my experience, has been is more of the couples who have seen a lot of things and they're like, we trust you to do things, but just there's some things that we've seen and it's like, oh my gosh, and it's like, yeah, no, I don't do that. I don't put a chicken on my head and dance around in my underwear. I stopped that about 6 months ago. Prior to that,
why is it we all thought of the same person when he said that?
Yeah,
just something I used to do. So there's a lot. I think there's a lot more. We're only about halfway, maybe down through this, and we're gonna have to wrap things up for tonight. You guys, the link is in the description of the video if you want to go check that out, and you can go find out more. There's some good information there. Take it though. There's things there to think about and maybe to tweak a little bit of what you do and what your thoughts are. But overall, this is covering a larger area. It's not just your market, and it could be giving you skewed numbers because, as we started really at the top of the show, summer months are, many places, the summer months are dead months for weddings, and some of the places that there's fall is better, whatever. And if you're in one of those other areas and such, and you're looking at that, it may not fit your area or your situation as well as you'd like it to. On this page, down below. Yes, thank you, Robin. So yeah, I see Brian is getting ready to go, and Howie should be back tonight. Howie was out in it last week, so they'll be doing Hanging with Howie here in a few minutes at DJNTV.com/chill. That's the chill room. You bounce in there. They will record a session of the show. It's about 20 minutes to a half an hour. They'll record, and then after that, they open up the room, and everyone can kind of chat and hang out. It's kind of a fun time to share some stuff and ask questions, because there's a lot of great sharing people that come in on Monday nights and share after the Hanging with Howie show. Tuesday, we'll be running one of the Tuesday music shows up at 9 o'clock Eastern tomorrow night, and then at 10 o'clock Eastern, the chill room, DJNTV.com/chill, is open again, where Brian, Jay, and Howie and John, usually the 3 or 4 of them get together and they do their Tuesday night music show and talking music, which is weird that as DJs that we don't talk music more often, but it's one of those things. So yeah, that's kind of on the schedule for this week. Our next virtual expo is going to be coming up here in February. We're going to be talking about performance. We have our team together that is going to be presenting on performance for that, and that will be out at DJNTV.com/virtual expo. There's some placeholders that are there right now, and we'll be announcing later in the week the different people who will be speaking and presenting on some performance topics for the night. So it should be fun. Looking forward to that, and that should be happening the last Monday of February. We're pushing it back so we're going to be after the Vegas show, so people don't miss that. So, anything else, guys?
No, sir.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, Dan, take us home, and let's make Howie's show go.
Sounds great. Well, on that note, thank you very much for taking time out of your night to join us. We understand that certain players with this were very statistic heavy and that kind of thing, but we invite you to check it out and just kind of maybe give some insight to yourself or some ways that you might add to this and say, well, I don't agree with that at all. But either way, check it out, have some fun with it. And thank you very, very much for joining us. Until next time.